This is such an extraordinary moment in the history of democracy and in the history of our state. And I'm really proud that even in the midst of a pandemic, we are on track to see record turnout in this year's election. And not only that, not only are we anticipating that over 5 or maybe even 5.5 million citizens will participate in Michigan's elections this fall, but we're also seeing a record number of citizens wanting to vote by mail, which is also quite remarkable because, as was mentioned, this is really just the first cycle where we have a right to vote by mail in our state constitution, a right that was put there by all of you, by citizens who demanded that our constitution reflect this right, as well as many others, including the right to be registered to vote up to and on election day. So I wanted to talk through today some of those new rights and what they mean for all of us and what our office is doing to ensure they are equally accessible to all. Now, first, the amendment that was enacted in 2018, amending our state constitution to create these new rights, was enacted by an overwhelming majority of the citizens. And among other things, it eradicated the barrier that voter registration requirements often create for our citizens. In fact, in past elections, you had to be registered to vote 30 days prior to the election. That's like tomorrow. That's when registration would cut off, more or less, this week. But that said, that's now changed. Now you can register to vote up to and on election day at your local clerk's office, which is really, again, extraordinary because it will ensure that no one is blocked from voting. No eligible citizen is blocked from voting simply because of a technicality or a registration issue. But that also means you need to help us make sure citizens know about this change. And notably, getting registered in Michigan has never been easier. In fact, you can register to vote if you have a state ID or driver's license online right now at michigan.gov/vote. You can also check your registration or update your registration there as well, in case you are not sure if you're registered or want to confirm that it's at the right address. So all of that is available to you at michigan.gov/vote. And when you go there, if you register to vote online, you'll be ready to go for November. But notably, that does shut down, that online voter registration option does shut down 2 weeks prior to Election Day. And at that point, the only place where you can register to vote is your clerk's office. So right now until Election Day, you can register at your clerk's office. And up until about October 19th, you can register online or through the paper forms that you can also access at michigan.gov/vote. So in addition to that, once you're registered, then you get to get your ballot, and you have many options for that this year as well. You can get your ballot really one of 3 ways. One is through the mail. You can have your ballot mailed to you, or not just at your home address, but if you are a college student, for example, and living out of your or away from your registration address, you can enter the address where you would like your ballot to be sent, and that ballot will be sent to you. And I was just reviewing the numbers this morning. We've had, as I mentioned, 2.5 million citizens request to have their ballot sent to them this year. And our clerks have been working overtime in every jurisdiction to get them those ballots. It's really quite extraordinary if you compare it to the numbers from 2016. For the city of Detroit, for example, over 100,000, about 110,000 citizens have requested to have their ballot mailed to them. And about 100,000 ballots have already been distributed. And several thousand, by the way, have already been voted in Detroit alone. Similar numbers for Dearborn and other communities around our state. We've seen a 350% increase in ballot requests. So that said, a lot of folks are taking us up on that option, getting their ballot mailed to them. But there's 2 other ways you can get your ballot as well. And these become particularly important closer to Election Day. Number one, you can get it from your clerk's office. Just go to your clerk's office today, if you'd like, and get your ballot. Fill out the form, you get your ballot right there. And if you want, by the way, you can actually fill it out, vote it, and turn it in right there as well, all in one step. And if you're keeping track, that means you can register, get your ballot, and vote your ballot and return it all in one visit to your clerk's office, which is really an important thing for citizens to know. So that said, you can get your ballot at your clerk's office, return it at your clerk's office, or you can get your ballot at your precinct on election day. You have those three choices, and of course, precinct voting will be open as it always is on election day, and you can find your local precinct at michigan.gov/vote. So that's how you get your ballot. And then returning your ballot also you've never had more options. It's also never been easier. You can return your ballot at your local drop box or at your clerk's office. And as long as it is received by 8 p.m. on election day in either your local clerk's office or at your local drop box, it will count. You can also return it through the mail, and we want you to do that if you do choose the mail as soon as possible, but no later than 2 weeks prior to election day. And that's particularly important to know if you are, again, living away from your home address, because it would be the address associated with your clerk's office that in your home address, that is where you could go to your clerk's office or your local drop box. So if you're away from home, certainly utilize that mail option, but do it soon because we want to make sure your ballot is received on time. In addition to that, you can also get your ballot again at your local precinct and, of course, return it and vote it right there as well. That traditional method of in-person voting on election day remains open and available, as I mentioned. And if you do choose to vote in person at your precinct, you will be met with election workers wearing masks, gloves, and sneeze guards, and they will be equipped with hand sanitizer and many other sanitation options, and voting booths will be socially distant. We want you to wear a mask and encourage you to follow all the protocols that we've got in place to protect your health. But notably, doing that means you don't have to risk your health in order to vote in person on election day. You also probably won't see any lines or crowding at the polling places on election day because so many citizens are voting early. And that's a good thing too. By giving citizens all of these options to vote, we'll see a spread of citizens throughout every option, meaning each one is equally accessible, safe, and secure, regardless of which you choose. So that's all new this year, but important that you know your options, and really important because we are up against another historic effort in Michigan. Not only is it historic and notable to have all of these options, to have this election infrastructure in place and ready to go for November, even in the midst of a pandemic. But on top of that, we will also see an extraordinary effort. We already are seeing this to disinform our citizens about all of these truths that I just mentioned. And you may say, well, it's simple. This is just information about how I get my ballot and how I return my ballot and how my ballot is counted. Yes, one would think that. Yet there are forces at play who don't want you and don't want voters to have faith in our elections for various reasons, mostly political and partisan agendas. It enables certain groups' agendas to be furthered if some people feel their voices don't matter and their votes don't count. But the opposite is true in Michigan. Your voices do matter and your votes do count. And so we need your help in ensuring that every citizen knows that they have the information they need to know, and that when they see bad information or false information, or even just something that seems odd, send it to us. Send it to my office at misinformation@michigan.gov. We'll review it, get back to you, and if it contains credible allegations of attempted voter intimidation, we'll pass it on to the Attorney General and her team to investigate and hold folks accountable, because we will not stand for that type of intimidation or voter suppression in our state. On top of that effort to protect against voter suppression, we also need your help in making sure that voters that speak English as a second language have equal access to all of this information and are equally protected from efforts to disinform them about their rights. This week, my office, in the past few weeks, my office has launched a multilingual voter registration and outreach effort led by my Deputy Chief of Staff, Zainab Hussein, who you all know quite well. And through that effort, we're working to ensure that we host town halls and voter information sessions in multiple languages. We hosted our first town hall in Arabic just last week, and we'll be doing more to make sure that that speaking English as a second language or limited English proficiency does not block or deter someone from exercising their right to vote. So we're also grateful for Access and your partnership on that as well. I've worked with Access, now since when I moved to Michigan, one of the first things I did was partner with Access and the Arab American News to research and provide translated election materials for particularly the community in Dearborn. And so I'm really proud now as the Secretary of State of Michigan to be taking those values and applying them at this critical moment in our state's history and in our country's history, where we want to ensure that every vote is counted and every voice is heard, and that citizens have access to translated election materials if they choose to have that in order to participate in our elections. Of course, you also have a right for assistance in election if the voter chooses. And we're here with the Attorney General to work and ensure that you have access to all that information about how to protect your rights against either voter suppression or in light of the many changes this year, so that we can answer questions that you have and assure you that we're meeting you in the community to ensure you have all the access you need to your rights. The last thing I'll mention is that part of this extraordinary year is also recognizing the external attacks that have been levied at our state and other states on the security of our elections. Now, I'm confident that the security of our elections is intact and that Michigan has some of the most secure election infrastructure in the country. We have set up a website, michigan.gov/election security, for you to get more information about everything we are doing to secure your vote and the election infrastructure. We have increased the protections around our qualified voter file to prevent it from hacking. We have implemented statewide post-election audits to ensure that the machines are accurately counting our ballots. And we have hired the state's first director of election security to be on guard and monitor all emerging threats as they occur, so that we're able to rapidly respond to them. All of that to say is, while that information comes into our state, trying to sow seeds of doubt among our electorate about their right and about the security of our elections, we need you to be armed with the correct information, the accurate information about everything that is actually happening to protect and secure your vote and our elections. So you can get that information at michigan.gov/election security. And through that, help us get the word out that elections are secure, regardless of what any candidate for office may try to make you think. And that we are working overtime to ensure we are ready for November, from our clerks to our election administrators to our Secretary of State's office. Finally, this is really the last thing. If any of you are interested in serving as poll workers in your community, we would love to have you. This is particularly important to ensure our election workers reflect the diversity of the communities that they serve. You can go to michigan.gov/democracy-MVP, and we'll get you all of these links. Or you could simply just send an email to me at secretary@michigan.gov and let us know you're interested in serving as an election worker, because we'd love to ensure that every community is fully represented in those who are standing on guard on the front lines on election day and beyond, to tabulate ballots and to ensure that when voters vote on election day, their rights are protected and their votes are counted. So again, that's michigan.gov/democracy-MVP to sign up to be an election worker in your community or in any community throughout Michigan.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.